Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into a topic that is absolutely central to biochemistry and medicine: carbohydrates. If you're a first-year MBBS student, think of this as a quick, high-yield revision to really lock in those core concepts. Ready? Let's get started.
I really like to kick things off with this quote from Satyanarayana. It's just so neat, you know? In just a couple of lines, it gives us a perfect roadmap for everything we're about to cover. It tells us what they are, how they're grouped, how they're joined, and what they do. It's basically the whole lecture in a nutshell.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the absolute basics. Then we'll look at the individual building blocks. After that, we'll see how they connect to form bigger structures, all the way up to the real giants of the family. And then we'll tie it all together with why this stuff actually matters in the human body and in the clinic. Let's jump in.
All right then. Section 1. First things first, let's nail down what we're even talking about when we say the word carbohydrate.
Okay, this is the textbook definition you've just got to know. At its heart, a carbohydrate is a carbon backbone that's loaded with hydroxyl, or OH groups. But the real key is the special functional group. It's either an aldehyde or a ketone. That's it. And just a quick note on the word sugar. In our day-to-day life, we use it for everything. But in biochem, it really just refers to the smaller carbs. You know, the ones that dissolve in water and taste sweet.
Let's move on and see how this all builds up. Section 2 is all about those fundamental units. You can think of them as the Lego bricks of the entire carbohydrate world, the monosaccharides.
So the very first way we sort these building blocks is by looking at that special functional group we just talked about. If it's an aldehyde, we call it an aldose. The superstar example here is, of course, glucose. If that group is a ketone, well, we call it a ketose, and fructose is the best example. It's a really simple split, but it's absolutely crucial.
The next way we classify them is even easier. We just count the carbons. 3 carbons? That's a triose, like glyceraldehyde. 5 carbons gives you a pentose. Think of ribose, which is in our RNA. And of course, 6 carbons makes a hexose, which is the category for our metabolic heavy hitters, glucose and fructose.
Now, this is where biochemistry gets really cool. Monosaccharides are absolute masters of something called stereoisomerism. What does that mean? It means they can have the exact same chemical formula, but be arranged differently in 3D space. And the number of possible arrangements is 2 to the power of n, where n is the number of asymmetric carbons. For a molecule like glucose, that means there are 16 different possible versions of it. That incredible diversity is why they can do so many different things.
So how on earth do we organize all these different 3D shapes? We use what's called the DNL system. To figure it out, you look at the OH group on the chiral carbon that's farthest away from the main functional group. If that OH points to the right, it's a D sugar. If it points left, it's an L sugar. Now here's the most important takeaway for medicine. Our bodies and our enzymes are built to use D sugars. They are so specific, they only recognize that D shape.
Okay, let's get even more specific. Epimers are isomers that are almost identical. They only differ in their 3D arrangement at one single carbon atom. You absolutely 100% need to know these 2 pairs for your exams. Glucose and galactose are C4 epimers. They only differ at carbon number 4. And glucose and mannose, they're C2 epimers. Burn those into your brain.
Now here's another really crucial point. Even though we often draw these sugars as straight lines to make it easier, that's not how they exist inside our bodies. In a solution, they curl up into stable rings. When that happens, a new special center of asymmetry is created, called the anomeric carbon. This gives us 2 final forms called alpha and beta anomers. And you need to pay close attention to this alpha and beta thing because it's what determines if a bigger carbohydrate is going to be used for energy or for building things.
Okay, so we have our building blocks. Section 3 is all about how we link them together with a special connection called a glycosidic bond to make disaccharides, or 2 sugar molecules. This slide is your high-yield summary of the 3 disaccharides you have to know, no excuses. First up, maltose. That's just 2 glucose units stuck together with an alpha-1,4 bond. Then there's lactose, the sugar in milk. That's galactose and glucose linked by a beta-1,4 bond. And finally, sucrose, or just plain old table sugar. That's glucose and fructose joined in a special alpha-1 beta-2 bond. The key thing to notice here is the bond type. That alpha or beta is what makes all the difference.
So what's this whole deal with reducing versus non-reducing sugars? Well, it all comes down to whether there's a free anomeric carbon that can pop open its ring structure. In maltose and lactose, one end of the molecule is free to do that. But take a look at sucrose. The anomeric carbons of both sugars are locked up in that glycosidic bond. There's no free end. That's why sucrose is the classic example of a non-reducing sugar.
Right, from single units and pairs, we're now scaling up to the real giants of the carbohydrate world, the polysaccharides. These massive polymers are used for two main jobs: storage and structure.
What's so amazing here is the difference a simple bond makes. Look, the storage polysaccharides, like starch and glycogen, are held together by alpha-glycosidic bonds. These are easy for our enzymes to break apart to get energy. But the structural ones, like cellulose, use beta-glycosidic bonds. These bonds are incredibly tough and rigid, which is perfect for building things. We humans don't have the enzymes to break those beta bonds, which is why we can't digest cellulose.
Let's quickly shout out a few other important polysaccharides. There's inulin, which is a polymer of fructose. It's super important clinically because we use it to measure kidney function, or GFR. Then you've got chitin, which is the tough stuff that makes up the exoskeletons of insects. And finally, the GAGs. These are more complex molecules, and they include things like hyaluronic acid, which lubricates our joints, and heparin, which is a potent anticoagulant.
Okay, we're on the home stretch. Final section. Let's bring all this chemistry together and see why it matters inside the human body and in the clinic.
So let's just zoom out and look at the big picture. What's the job description for carbohydrates? Well, number one is obviously energy. They're our main fuel source at 4 calories per gram, and our main energy storage depot in the form of glycogen. But they do so much more. They're critical structural parts, they act as starting material for other molecules, and they're even involved in cell-to-cell communication and detoxification. They are true multitaskers.
And here is a perfect clinical example of what happens when carb metabolism goes wrong. In uncontrolled diabetes, all that excess glucose in the body gets shunted down another pathway and is turned into a sugar alcohol called sorbitol. Now, sorbitol can't easily leave the cell, so it builds up and starts pulling water in by osmosis. That osmotic stress is what damages the lens of the eye, causing cataracts, and damages nerves, causing neuropathy. It's a direct link from basic biochemistry to a major clinical problem.
Okay, quick quiz time. Let's test your active recall. We talked about starch, the storage polysaccharide in plants. We know it has two parts, amylose and amylopectin. What's the one key structural difference between them? Go on, pause and think for a second. Did you get it? It's all about branching. Amylose is just a straight, linear chain of glucose, while amylopectin is branched, using alpha-1,6 bonds to make those branches.
And here's a little memory trick that can be a real lifesaver under exam pressure. How do you remember that glucose and galactose are C4 epimers? Simple. Just think G4. G for glucose and galactose, 4 for C4. It's simple, but it works.
And that brings us to the end of our rapid-fire revision of carbohydrates. We've journeyed from single sugar molecules all the way up to their complex and vital roles in health and disease. You've covered a huge amount of really important biochemistry today. Great job, and keep up the amazing work.